right. Well, it is noon, so I think just to make sure we all stay on track, I'll get us started here. I want to say thank you for everyone for attending our meeting. I hope everyone, can hear me. Give me a thumbs up, Alex. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Good. And yeah, in the last 3 weeks, so much has changed, and it's just so crazy to kind of realize that we have the opportunity to still stay connected as a membership, and I'm super happy to be able to put this on for everyone still. And communication is key for us to stay connected right now. As a couple quick reminders, everyone is on mute, and if you have any questions, you can use the little question area, what's it called? The chat function on Amazon Chime here. And then this is also being recorded right now, so we can share this with you afterwards if you missed anything or want to go back and watch it. And we'll also share it with those that couldn't attend today. So as far as the agenda, we'll first hear from Marcia Waters, and she'll give us an update from the Division of Real Estate. And then you'll hear from our board of directors. We've been working really hard to kind of keep everyone up to date with all of the information with COVID-19, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're also, looking to the future, and what we're have had to rearrange events and things like that. So just to give you an update of kind of what our future looks like and what we're working on. So now I would like to turn it over to Marcia Waters, who is the Director of Division of Real Estate and has been there since 2005. And hello, Marcia. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope everybody is staying healthy at this point. I'm going to give you guys my usual commission update, but because of everything that's going on with COVID-19, I did want to cover that probably at the beginning. If you have people that are looking to enter the industry and get licenses at this point, if they haven't taken their test, the testing centers right now are closed. We had a conversation with PSI yesterday because real estate is considered an essential profession these days. So PSI may evaluate what testing centers they can or cannot have open at this point, but right now there's no testing going on. With that said, though, the division itself is open. So if people have taken their exams, gone through fingerprinting, and they just need to apply, we can manage those applications. We can also help you guys manage whatever you need to do with your licenses, and we're still accepting complaints. So we're here. The other big thing that you need to know about is compliments of the Colorado Bar Association. They have put together a COVID-19 addendum for you guys to use in case if you need to push pause on your real estate transactions. We sent out an email blast about that form, I believe, last week, and it is posted to our website. So you've got that tool available to you. I would also caution you because basically most of the state is, well, I think all of the state at this point is pretty much supposed to be hunkered down and not out and about. Even if you are considered an essential function, you need to practice social distancing. And we got a complaint late last week. It actually came over from the Attorney General's office about a real estate broker that had told a member of the public that they had to get out of their house so that the property could be shown. And there were concerns because the member of the public, is exhibiting COVID symptoms. So I want to caution you about how you manage showings, open houses, whatever you have to do to get your real estate business done, because if you are not following the safe harbor or safety at home measures and the social distancing, what is happening is the Office of the Attorney General is now sending out letters warning people who are violating those orders, and those orders do carry the effect of law. So if you violate one of those orders, it is punishable by a $1,000 fine and up to a year in jail. So that, and we really just don't need to be putting more people at risk of getting this virus at this point. It's got some really nasty side effects, and unfortunately, I had joked a couple weeks ago with Erica that I was more than happy to come up to Vail because I'm not in one of those at-risk categories, but you don't even have to be in an at-risk category at this point for it to have some pretty critical impacts on your health. So just keep that in mind as you're dealing with your day-to-day business. And that's pretty much all I have as far as the division with COVID. So everything has kind of been put on pause as far as the big projects that we had going on. The biggest one that we were looking at had to do with the legislature. They had done a sunset review of the HOA Information and Resource Center last year. And in October, they released the report, and it had two recommendations. One was to continue the HOA Information and Resource Center, and the other recommendation was to basically give us the authority to investigate complaints and perform dispute resolution. And part of that would be imposition of penalties, and it's not just on the HOAs, it could be on the board members themselves. I think the legislator that is running these bills, or running this bill, has gotten a lot of feedback about concerns about the dispute resolution process. So I think if and when the legislature reconvenes, you will see major modifications to the sunset bill that is kind of moving through the legislature to continue the HOA office. There's another bill that we've been watching, and this bill stems partially from the executive order that the governor issued last year when he vetoed the Community Association Manager licensing bill. So when he did that, he issued an order to the department and also the division for us to engage in a stakeholder process to look at 4 separate areas that have to do with HOAs and community association managers. We did 4 different stakeholder meetings to get feedback from the public, and we also sent out a survey. We put together a report as required by the executive order, and that was delivered to the governor by January 1st. And as a result of some of our recommendations, which I will say were pretty benign, because when we went through the stakeholder process, we had a lot of the same people attending. I think the message was overwhelming that people hate their HOAs, which was not a big shock to us by any means.
I don't want to do video.
Okay.
But we were trying to make recommendations that, given the small segment that attended the meeting,
that's not working.
Were benign enough to hopefully address the different issues that we've seen during the course of us having the HOA office and also dealing with the CAM program. So there's a second bill going through the legislature that addresses some of those recommendations, and it has to do with really kind of online filing systems so that there's more transparency with HOAs. To resurrect CAM licensing, it's our belief, and it's also DORA, the department's belief, that you would have to go through another Sunrise application process in order to bring CAM licensing back, and that was conveyed in our report to the governor. So those are the 2 big bills that we are watching at this point, but because the legislature is not in session right now, we're not watching them so much anymore. We'll wait until everything kind of returns to normal. There was another bill that ran through the legislature, and the governor has signed it. This affects our appraiser program. And basically what it amounts to is, I'm sure you guys are seeing that there are different products available out on the market at this point, instead of just your standard residential appraisal report. So some of the products that are coming out are hybrid appraisals. And this is kind of a mix where an unlicensed person may gather data that they then give over to the appraiser, and the appraiser completes the appraisal report. And then there's evaluations. And evaluations are typically not done by appraisers. They are typically done by unlicensed people. Colorado's pretty restrictive as far as who can do an evaluation. It either it's got to meet the federal exemption threshold, which at this point is $450,000 for residential appraisal. It can be done by a bank representative, or it can be done by a real estate broker. So the Bankers Association wanted to kind of expand the definition of what a bank representative was to also expand the exemption for bank employees, and they managed to do that through legislation. And like I said, Governor Polis has already signed that into law. So we're definitely kind of seeing more and more evaluations being used in the market these days than the standard appraisal. Unless you're the division director wanting to refinance your house, and then they will tell you that, no, you don't get an appraisal exemption, and I feel sorry for the licensees that have to deal with me, but that was the fun for last fall. We've got the forms committee is currently working on some forms. That has not stopped in light of everything going on. They cleaned up the post-closing occupancy agreement, and they are currently working on a manufactured housing contract. The reason that we are doing a manufactured housing contract is a few years ago when the Real Estate Commission went through the Sunset Review, we expanded what the definition of a standard form was, and included in that definition is a personal property agreement, but that can only be used in conjunction with a real estate transaction. And really kind of the genesis behind the personal property agreement was the resort communities where you've got artwork, furniture, snowmobiles being exchanged in addition to the real property. What I've heard, though, as I go out and speak to the brokers, particularly along the Front Range, is they think that this personal property agreement now can be used for manufactured housing, and that was never the intent of the form. So the Forms Committee is working on a form that will apply to those transactions. If they have time, and I haven't even seen them working on this yet, they may try to revise the earnest money release just because it needs to be updated a bit. So you will start to see the Real Estate Commission engage in non-rulemaking hearings for the forms, and that will be, typically we do those in June. We have 2 meetings of the Commission in June. One is their regular meeting, and the other one is their forms meeting, so that we can get those forms out to you and available to use by January 1st, but we also want to provide them to the educators and the forms providers by October. So you will see that coming up. There's a couple things that go on regularly with us that you guys need to be aware of, particularly those of you that manage other brokers. So in February and March, this is when we start doing the errors and omissions insurance audits. And so we get data feeds from the major carriers, and those are Williams, Rice, and Crest. And we start pairing up those data feeds with our licensing system to see who does or does not have a policy of errors and omissions insurance that is active. If you don't have an active policy, we will move you over from active to inactive, and you can't practice. So I would really recommend, as employing brokers or managing brokers, it's probably a good idea come February and March to start going through your rosters and checking to see who does and who does not have errors and omissions insurance, and who may have gone down to inactive status because they didn't renew their policy of errors and omissions insurance. That comes up quite a bit in our complaint investigations. We'll get a complaint in from a member of the public saying, you know, Marcia screwed up this contract, and then as we start investigating the complaint, we'll find out, well, okay, so not only did Marcia screw up the contract, but Marcia also had an inactive license, which is an additional violation of the license law. So I would definitely encourage you to check your brokers to make sure that they have active licenses. The other thing that we do on a regular basis are continuing education audits. So your standard 3-year license is required to complete 24 hours of continuing education. 12 hours of that must be the commission update courses. Those are 4 hours long. You can't take the same commission update course more than once for credit, and I don't know necessarily why you would want to, and the other 12 hours needs to be commission-approved elective credit. So as you're looking for CE to take, make sure you go on our website and verify that it has been approved by us, because what we do is, on a quarterly basis, we are auditing the active brokers for their continuing education. And unfortunately, if you give us certificates that show that it was not a commission-approved course, you're not going to get credit for it. And if you don't complete all of your CE, or you don't have all of your CE is based on approved credits, then you end up getting penalized, and that's typically because the commission will impose a fine against you. So make sure you're doing your CE. So those are kind of the more mundane compliance issues that we deal with, the errors and omissions insurance and the continuing education. Then we get to deal with the consumer complaints. And by consumer complaints, you guys qualify as being consumers as well. So most of our complaints come in from the general public. We do have licensees file complaints against each other, and we do accept anonymous complaints. If you're going to file an anonymous complaint with us, just make sure you're very detailed about it, because we don't have the luxury of following up with you. But I understand why brokers want to file anonymous complaints, particularly if you're in a small area. Sometimes that can result in retaliation and just ill will in general. So we do accept anonymous complaints. Some of the things that we're seeing as far as complaints, and also we do examinations. So we'll go out to the real estate brokerages and we'll look at your transaction files, and we'll also look at your financial accounts. Some of the common things that we're seeing either between complaints or the examinations that we do, probably one of the first ones that I would mention to you guys has to do with the concept of money belonging to others. So as we are going out and doing brokerage audits and looking at your trust accounts, what we are seeing is brokers are not just doing your standard sales or leasing or property management activities. We have a lot of brokers that are doing short-term rentals. They may have other business ventures that they're dealing with. I think the big thing that you need to be aware of is any time that you take money that belongs to others, whether it is real estate brokerage related or not, the law subjects you to the accounting requirements of the real estate commission, and it also gives them the authority to come in and look at your books. So say like on my side business, I am painting houses and I collect paint deposits for my painting business. Because I'm a licensed real estate broker, those paint deposits have to go into a trust account, and then I have to comply with all of the commission's regulations about trust accounts over those paint deposits. So I have to do a 3-right reconciliation, I have to do a monthly accounting for it, and the commission can come out and audit just that paint deposit account. The license law gave them that authority. So we are seeing that quite a bit, particularly with brokers that do short-term rentals. So if you're accepting guest deposits, owner proceeds, collecting taxes for the owners, you need to make sure that you're putting those in a trust account. The other thing that we see is when you guys do your own investment properties, how you manage those. So if I have my own investment property and I receive a security deposit, that security deposit needs to go into a trust account because those are tenant funds, those aren't broker funds. When I receive rental proceeds on my investment property, those proceeds cannot go into a trust account that holds somebody else's monies, because then that's commingling. So just keep that in mind if you have investment properties. The second big thing that we see commonly has to do with lockbox combinations, and I don't know how it's going in Vail, but this happens quite a bit in the Denver area. We've got buyers brokers that decide that they don't want to go out with the buyers and view the properties, so they just give them the lockbox combination and send the buyer out to the property themselves. I would not do that, because at this point we've got new rules in place as of January 1st, and one of them specifically deals with access to property. The commission can discipline you for giving out a lockbox combination and not going with your client to see the property. They've been doing this for a while. Prior to January 1st, they would just call you unworthy and incompetent if you did that, but now we've got a specific rule that addresses that. And the new rule also addresses other real estate-related professionals that might access the property, like home inspectors. I think there's less concern by having an appraiser go out because they are licensed by us and we've done a criminal background check, versus a home inspector who's not licensed, hasn't gone through the criminal background check process. So that definitely make sure that you look at the Chapter 6 rules, because those have changed. One of the third areas that we have just ongoing complaints about is the disclosure of material facts, conflicts of interest, and affiliated business arrangements. So with material facts, the important thing to remember is not whether it's material to the broker or not, it's whether it's material to your buyer or your seller. So You don't get to be the deciding factor here. You need to just disclose it to them and make sure that they're fully informed and they can make their own decision. And I probably, if I was out practicing these days, would be following up with an email just to document that, hey, I told you about this, and have them respond, and I would be keeping that in my transaction file. And those kind of run the gamut. We've seen brokers that have repeatedly listed properties like over the span of 15 years, and there was a parking dispute 15 years prior. The parking dispute still exists. 12 years later, they fail to disclose it, and it unfortunately has come back to result in license discipline against the broker. Conflicts of interest. This is something that we typically see with sales transactions, although it can occur with property management as well. So in a sales transaction, if I'm listing my son's property, I need to be disclosing to the other side that the seller is my son. I need to make that disclosure. We'll see it in property management when, if I'm the property manager and I refer somebody over to my husband's maintenance company, I need to be making that disclosure as well, that we've got that conflict. And of course, the consumer has to agree to want to use his company. Affiliated business arrangements, those are settlement transactions only. So anytime you're going to have an exchange or a sale, that's an affiliated business arrangement. So if it's me as the broker and my husband as the mortgage loan originator, and I'm referring somebody over to his mortgage company, that's an affiliated business arrangement that I need to be disclosing prior to contracting. And you have to also disclose it to the other side as well. That's what the Colorado law requires. You've got to make affiliated business arrangement disclosures to the division. Anytime you acquire a new affiliated business arrangement, or if you go from inactive to active and you're going to have an affiliated business arrangement. Also, if you get rid of an affiliated business arrangement, you need to disclose that to us as well. And then the employing brokers have to do annual disclosures to us about the affiliated businesses for the brokerages. The fourth category you would think would be a no-brainer, but apparently it's still pretty prevalent with what we see as far as complaints. There's an expectation that once you're licensed, you're not out there committing crimes or getting convicted for them. And there's a whole laundry list. It's not just misdemeanors. It includes felonies. Depending on what it is going to depend on how the real estate commission deals with you. So if I get arrested and convicted of third-degree assault because I was in a bar fight, chances are the commission is just going to fine me, and they'll probably give me a stipulation for diversion. So it's kind of like a lower level of discipline, slap on the hand type of thing. Now, if I'm filing forged documents with the county clerk and recorder's office, and that's a felony, the commission is probably not going to give me a $500 fine and slap me on the hand. They're probably going to revoke my license. And that's kind of what we see, is if it's real estate related, the commission has been less forgiving about the discipline that they impose. So if it's real estate related, or you really present to be a threat to the general welfare of the public, that's when you start to see the commission revoking licenses for criminal convictions. Some of the colorful ones that we've seen that aren't necessarily real estate related that resulted in a revocation of a license was, we had one guy hire an undercover police officer to kill his wife, which fortunately he hired an undercover police officer to kill his wife, and so she's still among the living. It's not real estate related. It was a felony, and he ended up serving time in prison and tried to tell us that he wasn't a threat to society, but the commission begged to differ, and he's not licensed with us anymore. So we understand that people have missteps with law enforcement. I think the Real Estate Commission has plenty of flexibility to deal with things. Fortunately, DUI is not something that you have to report to us after licensure. I don't think we would have very many real estate professionals in the state of Colorado if DUI prohibited you from practicing. So just make sure, if you have a conviction, you also have 30 days from entrance of the plea of guilt, the conviction, or the plea of no contest to notify us about it. And if you don't, then it's a separate violation. Property management, makes up a third of the complaints that we get. A lot of what we see when we investigate property management and also when we go out and do the audits is brokers don't have their accounts named properly. We have a lot of brokers that think they have trust accounts, but then when we start looking at it, they're only a trust account by name. The bank has said that they were a trust account, but they don't afford any of the protections. So definitely make sure that if you hold trust accounts, that the banking institution that you're working with is actually one of those that does provide trust accounts. We're working at assembling a list to kind of help you guys out. But at this point, I think we're only aware of 5 different institutions that provide those. And the other issue that we see with property management is 3-way reconciliations. And we've put out a video on how to do those, along with some newsletter articles. And there may be more to come in the future if we continue to see issues with it. Another category that we see quite a bit is brokers who are out there practicing real estate brokerage without an active license. So there's several different statuses that a broker can have, but you can only practice when your license is active. So probably the most common one that you guys hear about are inactive licenses. This is when you decide that you just want to take kind of a break from real estate, not have to pay for errors and omissions insurance. Technically, you don't have to do continuing education while you're on inactive status. You just put your license on ice and you go do something else. Then there's expired. If you fail to renew your license, you go into expired status. And there's a 3-year period once your license expires that you can come back and reinstate your license. It gets more expensive the longer you wait. So the first 30 days after expiration, you can come back and pay the standard renewal fee. 31 days to 1 year, that's when you're looking at, I believe, 1.5 the renewal fee. And then when you go into the 2 to 3 year reinstatement period, you're looking at basically a double renewal fee in order to come back. And if you wait until year 3 to reinstate your license, so say like my license was supposed to expire, we'll try to make it easy, December 31st of 2017. So I'm in my 3-year reinstatement period, and I wait until October to reinstate it. That reinstatement, I'm going to pay double the fee, and I'm only going to have 2 months before I have to renew my license again. So just be really careful about when your license expires. Then the last 2 statuses are suspended and revoked. And suspended usually means that you've done something pretty bad and the Real Estate Commission wants you to have a cessation of practice. They are penalizing you with a suspension. Occasionally we will see a broker get suspended for non-payment of child support. The Commission has been a little more lenient about that scenario than if you've been bad and they've disciplined you and you continue to practice. Typically, if your license is suspended because you have a disciplinary action, the Real Estate Commission is, if we get another complaint and you're practicing while you're suspended, they're probably going to move to revoke you. And the last status is revoked, and that means that they decided that your practices were so egregious that they don't want you practicing anymore. Revocations, while they say they're permanent, aren't. They only last for, I think, 2 years, and then the broker can come back and reapply. Or it may actually be 1 year. I can't remember with the different license types that we have. And if you continue to practice with a revoked license, we'll do one of 2 things. If it was a stipulated agreement where you gave up your license, we can move forward, and it's kind of like a breach of contract. We will do a stipulation violation. Or if it's a final agency order where it means it's gone through the full hearing process and a judge has been involved, then probably what we're going to do is seek an injunction and you'll get to deal with an actual judge at that point. We don't see too many people continuing to practice after they've been revoked, but definitely if you see that, make sure that you report those to us because they've already demonstrated that they are not playing on the same level playing field that you guys are operating on. So another thing that we deal with anytime we get a complaint in is we are evaluating those complaints to see whether the employing broker is supervising. So supervision is one of the issues that we see in our complaint investigations. Our expectations of the employing brokers or anybody that the employing broker delegates their authority down to is you are supposed to be available for questions. You have to review the files, and you are our front line of defense. You make sure that the violations don't occur or reoccur. It's also important for the employing brokers to realize that you are also responsible for unlicensed assistants, bookkeepers, secretaries. It's not just the licensed employees that work for you. So keep that in mind. We've been seeing issues with teams. Teams have a tendency to practice like they're their own little independent entity from the brokerage, and that's not acceptable. They need to be doing their advertising in the name of the licensed brokerage. They're prohibited from using certain terms because we don't want the consumers to be confused about who they're dealing with. And then I have heard in some of the mountain areas just some of the confusion that occurs with the different teams and how you guys enter stuff into the MLS. So when you take a listing, there might be a team of 20 brokers that are supposedly on this listing, but then when the listing closes, the brokers are reaching back out to the MLS saying, oh no, you need to take 17 people off. There were only 3 brokers involved in that. We haven't been too involved as far as complaint investigations for that, but it is concerning because that does affect people's productions rates, particularly if they are later on looking at becoming an employing broker. That will play into their experience requirements that they have to have. There's 2 more complaint types that I have to go over. Attorney drafted forms is one. So when we broadened the definition of a commission or a standard form a few years ago, you were always able to use attorney drafted forms. You were told, though, that if there was a commission-approved form that was appropriate for the transaction, that is the one that takes priority over all of the others, and that's what you should be using. When they changed the law, they didn't change that aspect of it, but it does say you can use attorney-drafted forms, but you need to make sure that the attorney's name is on there, the broker's name or the brokerage firm's name for whom it was drafted, and it has to be a licensed Colorado attorney that drafted that. And that seems to be the big thing that we have been seeing as we go out and do transaction file audits, is brokers are using attorney-drafted forms, but they don't have kind of the disclaimer language about this is the attorney that drafted it. Or we find out, well, it was drafted by a California attorney. Well, no, that's not acceptable. It's got to be a Colorado attorney. And for those of you that are franchises, that can play into account for you guys. And then the last thing that we see has to do with your uniform duties, and it's those brokers that are the limited service that only enter listings into the MLS, and they don't do anything else. That business model is not acceptable in Colorado. If you're going to advertise a property for sale or lease on behalf of somebody else, the law requires that you are either going to be a single agent or a transaction broker, and you have to perform all of those duties depending on which one you're going to be. Obviously, if you're a single agent, that has to be in writing. And I will tell you that one of the rule changes that came about effective January 1st has to do with brokers that do their own transactions. We don't see this too often, but if you're listing your own property for sale, you cannot be your own transaction broker. So the expectation is anytime you're going to list your own property for sale, you need to have a written agreement memorializing the terms. So that has been a change. I think previously the way we would deal with it is we would just tell the broker, hey, you couldn't be a transaction broker, but now potentially if you violated that regulation, the real estate commission could say that you violated your brokerage relationship duties and that you also failed to use the appropriate forms. So keep that in mind. So I'll tell you about a few complaints that we don't deal with that we get in on a regular basis from consumers, or kind of a mix of issues that we hear from consumers. So we do not regulate your dress code, thankfully. Apparently there is a broker in the Colorado Springs area that last February was going out on showings wearing a leopard skin bikini. That is not us. We do not deal with that. I have a hard enough time dealing with a dress code and state employees, let alone trying to wrangle 48,000 real estate brokers and monitor what you wear. One of the anonymous complaints that we have gotten in, and it's been probably close to 2 years now, was an anonymous complaint alleging that a real estate broker was exchanging sexual favors for appliances on new builds. So what you do in your free time is typically none of the commission's business. We did choose to investigate this one because there was a real estate related component. It was the appliances on new builds component. The nice thing about anonymous complaints is typically the investigator can figure out who actually filed the complaint, and during the course of this investigation, we were able to identify that the anonymous complainant was actually the broker's disgruntled ex-husband. There was no validity to his complaint, and we were able to dismiss this issue at staff level without having to take it to the Real Estate Commission. We have a current complaint that I don't think has gone to the commission yet, where we had one broker file a complaint alleging that another broker had engaged in sign crossing. And the seller for this listing apparently had previously had a relationship with the broker claiming that, Betty broker had sign crossed. Well, come to find out, the complaining broker, at one point did have a listing agreement with the seller. It's never good when you see the broker and the seller that they're representing have restraining orders against each other. So you have a difficulty performing your brokerage duties. Eventually, the listing agreement expired. He decided to sign up with another real estate broker. The complaining broker files the sign crossing complaint against the new broker. And then as we're investigating this, we see that the complaining broker had incompetently filled out kind of amend extend agreements, and then we're starting to question who actually signed those agreements because it doesn't appear to be the sellers. So that is an active investigation that we dismissed against the sign crossing because there was no evidence that the one broker had sign crossed. But the commission does have the authority to then open up a complaint against the complaining broker, and that's what's happening. So that one's ongoing. I'm going to give you guys some numbers, and then I will see if there's any questions that you guys have for me. Our current populations as of earlier in March, for the real estate brokers, we have 47,995 licensed brokers in the state of Colorado. Our complaints are down. You won't hear me complain about that. We have 144 active complaints. For the fiscal year and we operate on fiscal years, so the numbers I'm going to give you for each of our programs coming up span from July 1st of 2018 through June 30th of 2019. So for the real estate brokers during that time frame, we received 919 new complaints against you guys. That was up 15% from the prior year. 31% of those were dismissed at intake. So to give you an example of dismissed at intake, that's our leopard skin bikini broker. She never made it to an investigation. 54% were dismissed after investigation. This is your poor broker that had somebody allege that she was exchanging sexual favors for appliances. 6% of the complaints that we investigate where we're able to substantiate violations, those are handled at the staff level. We don't handle too many of those, and they are really low-level violations. So those are like your first-time lockbox combination. Advertising is handled at the staff level typically. Continuing education non-compliance, that would be handled at the staff level as well. Of the investigations that we do where we're able to substantiate a violation of the license law, 40% of those are presented to the Real Estate Commission. So 40% of that larger number is what goes to the Real Estate Commission. And they have the authority to do anything from a letter of admonition, which is like a warning letter, all the way up to revocation and maximum fines being $2,500 per violation. Most of the time, you're going to see somewhere in between of what the commission imposes, and it's usually remedial education, with employing brokers, if you're failing to supervise your broker associates and there's concerns that this is like a pattern of behavior, you may see the Real Estate Commission downgrade your license so that you can't supervise. But they've got a whole kind of wide array of tools that they can use as far as addressing different violations of the license law. So those are the real estate brokers. The appraisers are our second oldest regulated group. We have 2,825 of them currently. Their complaints are really low. We only have about 32 active complaints these days. During that same time frame that I told you earlier, the fiscal year, we got 85 new complaints against the appraisers. 20% of those were dismissed at intake. And I will tell you, if you are unhappy with the value conclusion that an appraiser arrives at, that is not in the board's jurisdiction. We don't regulate value. It's the methodology that they use in order to arrive at their value conclusion. So some of the things that we'd investigate against an appraiser would be, going outside the geographic area, not being geographically competent. So if you saw a Castle Rock appraiser come over to Vail and do an appraisal, I would be asking questions about how they gain competency in that market to do that. That is something that the board would look at. So of the 85 new complaints, 49% were investigative dismissals. The board is pretty lenient as far as license law violations are concerned with the appraisers, just because it's pretty difficult to get an appraisal credential. So they're less likely to take that appraisal credential away. They'll do a lot of remedial action. So we may see an appraiser that has kind of a low-level issue that looks like it could be addressed with a course, and the board is willing to make the appraiser take the course, and then they will dismiss the complaint once the course has been taken. So dismissals with appraisers are pretty common. Then 10% of what we dealt with was handled at the staff level, and then 41% are board cases. And a board case, typically, you could have an appraiser that's appraising beyond the level of their licensure. So if you have somebody whose appraisal credential starts off with the prefix of AL, they're a licensed appraiser, and you should not probably see them doing any fee appraisals in Vail, because the Vail market values probably exceed the threshold of what a licensed appraiser can do, plus you're dealing with complex properties. You would expect to see an appraiser with a license that starts off with the prefix of CR or CG in the Vail area. Then you've got our last program, which is the mortgage loan originators. We have 15,354 of them. This is a really quiet program, I think largely due to the federal oversight. We only have 13 active complaints against the mortgage loan originators. The interesting thing about the mortgage loan originators is that pretty much 82% of their population is located outside of the borders of Colorado. Most of our mortgage loan originators are credentialed in multiple states as well. So during that fiscal year, we got 137 new complaints against the mortgage loan originators. 47% of those were dismissed at intake, so we did not investigate them at all. 41% were investigative dismissals. And then 17% were handled either at the staff level, and 42% went to the board. And this is a really quiet program. So as far as what goes to the board, typically it's mortgage loan originators that have post-licensure criminal convictions, or we see competency issues. They put people into products that are not the appropriate product for the person to be in as far as their loan products are concerned, or they will completely just abandon their client, and it will result in the loss of their loan locks. Sometimes earnest money comes into play with those complaints. So that's pretty typically what we see with the mortgage loan originators. And that's just kind of the universe of the licensees that we have. With the HOAs, we have 7,737 that are registered with us, but we really have no oversight with them. And if they don't register with us, they can't enforce a lien until they do register with us. So that is the division pretty much in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Erica, you were a little bit patchy. We do have one of the managing brokers, Greg Strawn, has a question for you, Marcia. Thank you.
Okay. Greg, do you want to tell me your question?
Erica, do you show that he's still connected?
I see that he's still on, and it's not, I don't see, clicking on the microphone. Oh, no.
I can't. I'm trying to unmute him and I can't.
Okay.
Greg, if you can hear us, you can type it in and we'll ask. For the time being, Debbie has a question. Okay, hold on. Greg just typed, how do we show property now given the COVID-19 restrictions?
Well, so I think you have to deal with the social distancing of remaining 6 feet away from each other. I don't know. So
don't worry about that. We sent out an email to all the members, so we'll follow up, Greg, on that question. There were some recommendations from Colorado Association of Realtors on that. So if you have another one, we can ask Marcia.
I don't think if I was out looking for property these days that I would be wanting to view property just given what's going on. I wouldn't. Okay, so I see the question about can you insist on access? I would not do that because that will get you a letter from the Office of the Attorney General saying that you are potentially violating one of the safe-at-home or stay-at-home orders, and they will reiterate that the violations are a $1,000 fine and 1 year in jail.
And Alex, did you say there was another question? I can't seem to see them.
Debbie Darrow also has a question. Debbie, if you could please type it in the text so Marcia can see it, that'd be greatly appreciated. You see that, Marcia?
So the question is effective February, will brokerages with umbrella E&O policies need to hand update each licensee's info on DORA, or does the brokerage policy date cover all of their roster? I will check with my licensing manager, and why don't I just email that response to Erica so that everybody can see it? It'll be this afternoon when I get a response. Does that work?
Yep, that works.
All right.
Can you hear me now? This is Greg Strawn.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're still on I've got a buyer who has been waiting for the right fit to come on the market. Nobody really wants to look at real estate today, but the right fit came available. And so how can we comply if we are an exempted class that, we perform a crucial function? I understand the 6 feet of distancing. Mm-hmm. But can you shed any more light on how we can better do our job if we have a buyer who's ready, the right fit comes available? What do we do with the listing agent, and what restrictions can they impose?
Well, based on what I've seen come out of the AG's office, if the listing agent or the seller is like, I'm not leaving my house for you to see this, or we're not doing showings right now, they have the ability to do that because of the stay-at-home orders. this might be an opportune time to maximize your use of technology rather than doing kind of the traditional walkthroughs, though, because you just don't know at this point who may have it, who may not, and you just don't want to risk having somebody who's not been exposed to, you walk them through a house and you find out, well, the seller's got it.
Yeah, I understand, but nobody's going to commit to a $600,000 purchase that they haven't seen in person. It would be rare. It happens.
Well, and then they need to make an educated decision on, if I want to go into that property, it's on me.
Okay.
As the buyer.
Do I need any email protections? Do I need to say, if you go out and look at this, you're doing it at your own risk? Is the commission going to prepare a form before we take a client out into the market to do what we're allowed to do?
I don't think that you're going to see a commission-approved form that basically kind of gives you a waiver or some sort of coverage for doing showings.
Should we just deal with it by email, saying,
I would be getting stuff in writing.
Okay, from the buyer, so that we don't have recourse if they get sick and they accuse us, gosh, it happened while, during that showing.
I think if you've made them aware of, listen, there's medical issues that you could be exposed to, it's your responsibility, and if they confirm, well, I want to go out and see the property, you do fall under that essential umbrella because you're real estate.
Okay.
And we, Greg, just so you know, we have a ton of different resources on our website, and I know Laura will be covering some of them too here in the update. So, I think one thing we're noticing is people aren't reading the information that we're sending out. There's a ton of really good, useful information on this topic. So you just have to go through and figure out what is best for the situation.
All right. Thank you, Erica. My second question regards PPAs. They're complicated. Can we essentially negotiate a bill of sale transfer from the seller to the buyer per CBS, but they're asking us to set a value? I don't know how to do that. Can you give us any help on that bill of sale PPA valuation?
So I don't think that's something you should be doing. That's essentially personal property appraisal, which, although not regulated here, I think if you did a bad job at it and somebody filed a complaint, the real estate commission could say that you had gone beyond the level of your licensure and competency.
And that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Because if we have in writing that the buyer and the seller have set the value of the personal property that's going to be transferred in the bill of sale at $1,000, and they sign that, are we okay, or is there something else that we should know about?
From the real estate commission standpoint, you should be okay.
All right. Okay. Just so long. I'm not setting it, but if the parties agree to set it at some number, then we're not in violation.
Yeah, that's not a reflection of you going beyond your license level.
Okay. Thank you.
And Alex, do you see any other questions out there?
I see Susie posed a question to Greg. Gil Fancher just sent, in a personal property agreement, what if you put a value of something like $1?
So I don't think the broker should be setting any value in the personal property agreement. That should be negotiated between your parties.
But isn't that the function of the personal property agreement? Is to
have you value?
To say, here's what's included. Here's what the seller is going to transfer to the buyer, and it's fraud if you put $0 or $1 because it's worth something. And that's where the confusion seems to lie. Has the commission had experiences with this dollar value that was set, for example?
I don't recall seeing any complaints about the dollar value.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But that doesn't mean like that it's okay for you guys to set it. I think this is probably a good topic to have the commission discuss.
Because in Vail, it's a vacation home. Our business is vacation homes. Most of the time, the personal property goes with the real estate. And it's just not a clear area, despite having been doing this for 25 years in Vail.
Oh, I agree.
And Gail just said, hey, it's a bit vague because we're not personal property appraisers. But I think what I picked up from Marcia is that this shouldn't be a number set by the agents. This should be a mutual agreement between the buyer and the seller, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So as long as us as the agents are tracking and having in writing the agreements and negotiations on that amount, then we're protecting us.
You should not have any issues with the real estate commission if you do it that way.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're kind of running short on time here. Was there anything else on the chat that you saw, Alex? I can't see them.
There's one more from Debbie saying selling a broker's own property. You mentioned that there's a letter and an understanding that you should be a seller's agent. But what is that letter and who is that to? So
it's not a letter. You're expected, if you're selling your own property, that you have an exclusive right to sell listing agreement because you're your own seller's agent. And also just make sure that you're disclosing to any potential buyer or their brokers that you are a licensed Colorado real estate broker.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and we'll continue on to the next step. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Marcia.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Laura, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so first of all, great big thank you to Marcia for being part of our meeting, helping us out, and thank you all for your patience as we navigate the new world of virtual meetings. So I think I want to just briefly cover some updates with you guys. Obviously, the coronavirus and the COVID-19 has been a big focus for Erica, the board, and then her team there. So a thank you to them as well. We've been providing updates to members regarding COVID-19 with email updates. We also have a section on our VBR website under Member Home with all the information. Another great resource, NAR has put out information regarding a breakdown of the CARES Act. So you can find that on our website. It was in the newsletter that we sent out earlier this week. It doesn't seem to be getting a lot of clicks, so we just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. It's for both members and clients. So please click on that, read through it. It's a fantastic resource. The Colorado Association of Realtors Government Affairs team, they jumped in during this stay-at-home order and updated that to include real estate as an essential industry. This is just one great example of how your RPAC dollars are being used for good. We do want to remind everybody to be mindful that with this revision, it does not reflect business as usual for real estate in Colorado. We want to recommend that with this revision, you still take precautions for your buyers and sellers and our community. Working remotely and social distancing is still best practices right now, and while this order is in place. We will continue to promote tools for right now. We opened up the Vail Pro course to take virtually and are sharing our resources available for members during this time. We're also looking to support our affiliates on social media and sharing any posts that they are putting out there. And we're asking them to use the hashtag VBR affiliates. So if you guys know of anyone needing anything from us, brokers or affiliates, please reach out to us so that we can stay connected with them. And I believe you guys are all familiar with the Welcome Home bags that we launched at the beginning of the year. We had great success with this program in January, February. If you're not familiar with it, we've got more information on our website, that each bag is in a VBR logoed cooler bag with sponsored items from our different affiliates. It includes a stadium blanket, wine tumblers, a bamboo cutting board, reusable shopping bag. For now, we are not handing those out, just for the health and safety of everyone involved with social distancing. However, once we get past this concern, we will make those available, a great resource to welcome new members into our community, and we can give those once we make it through this current crisis. We do have some upcoming events, so we've been working really hard to make sure to continue and be able to provide our member benefits during this time. We're having our virtual general membership meeting. We have a fantastic keynote speaker, Ross Schaefer, who will present, Are You Still Relevant to Future-Proof Your Company and Yourself? That's April 7th, 9 to 11 a.m. It will be online. I know that the board is putting out some more information on that. So we anticipate it to be really great and engaging. Coming up at the end of June, we have the Home for Hounds. So the Vail Board of Realtors has partnered with the Town of Avon and is the presenting sponsor for the Home for Hounds public art exhibit of dog houses taking place this summer. These dog houses will be sold to the highest bidder for the Eagle Valley Humane Society. Right now, we are currently in search of individuals or businesses to design and build dog houses. So if you know anyone with interest, please reach out to us at the board, and we can get them more information. And then quickly, before I turn this over to Alex, I just want to put a special thank you out to our community, all our first responders, doctors, nurses, keeping us moving in this time. I know that it's very difficult and uncertain for everybody, but I know that we're going to move through that. So we'll turn it over to Alex, the MLS chair, and get an update for him on all things MLS.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And we've been talking with the MLS, both committee and board, and we're very much in line with everything that the VBR has been sending out and during this coronavirus. And I will beat a dead horse and say the term that everybody else is saying, unprecedented time. But I don't know if anyone was able to attend the Domus Analytics webinar last week. Pretty good turnout, and it's a great tool that we offer to our membership. And I think in this time, especially as March 31st marks the end of the month here, tomorrow is going to be updated data in that application. So if you haven't used it or you want to play around with it, don't be shy and click on the link on our website, logging into the VBR.net, and it's on the left-hand side. Another thing that we've really been happy about is our conversion from Rapatoni to Flex MLS has been good, and leading up to it, you know, it's going to be a change for everybody, and I think it's kind of funny how the COVID-19 situation has provided opportunity to really focus on their business administration and organization. And this is a good opportunity for all of you as managing brokers and agents to improve their business and take the software to the next level. You know, a quick and easy way to explain the shift that we're coming from Rapatoni to a Flex platform is we're coming from a flip phone to the next generation iPhone, and it's amazing what it's going to be able to do and offer all of us in an interesting time, an amazing way to provide value for all of our clients in our industry as a whole. So we're really excited about it, and we will continue to take proactive steps to make sure everybody's prepared, have a lot of different ways to make this transition as easy as possible. We're going to have a timeline that is actually the next slide. Oh, wait, going back, sorry, Erica. If you go to the VBR.net website, you can see that drop-down menu where you can click to see what the latest and greatest information is on this transition. So thanks for that. And then this guide right here, we're going to send out this week, just kind of mentally preparing everybody for the shift. I think we're getting more and more open rates and click rates on our emails during this time, just because people are really kind of hunkering down and looking. But checking for accuracy, right now we're really just transferring all the information from Rapatoni over into the new system, working out bugs, and getting a lot of people involved, committees, people testing, just to make sure on the back end, well ahead of schedule of switching over, we're getting all the information appropriately. The dual MLS is going to begin on May 11th. So we have from now until then just to continue to communicate. I would say the biggest thing that agents and people could be doing now is getting their client database and all of their client portals that they have saved in the current Rapatoni platform. I know a lot of agents right now are doing that and reaching out to their clients. We always look out for excuses to reach out and connect with our clients. This just gives another reason to connect and touch base with them. Hey, are you still looking for real estate in Vail? And are these the parameters? I'm going to set you up in this new system. And I think that's going to be a challenge that we know we can get through. But I think that's the biggest thing that we can do starting early. Training, official in-person training begins on May 11th, right when we have the dual MLS available. And that is going to be continued to, we're planning on having that and keeping that as in person. Flex is transitioning another board MLS in Oregon over as we speak, and they're already doing a lot of what was going to be in person into Zoom and these kind of virtual meetings. So we don't have to be the guinea pig for that. And there could be multiple options if we do have to extend, but for the benefit of our membership, we are continuing as planned. We're going to make it easy with webinars, on-site trainings, as well as off-site and these electronic options as well. Alerting everybody for May 29th that that's the last time that Rapatoni will be used, and the launch date is June 1st. You'll still be able to read only with the Rapatoni platform, but any new listings or entering data is into Flex is going to be done June 1st officially. No more Rapatoni. So we're all excited for that and additional training after that. So we'll wait till kind of get through my section. I'm sure there's questions out there about this transition. But the clear cooperation policy is another big thing that we are addressing both in the committee meetings and the board meetings, and everybody I'm sure is aware of this and understands it. As it's in a nutshell, as soon as a property is publicly announced, and they kind of go into details of what announces a public listing, but as soon as a member of the public or a potential consumer sees information about a listing and it's not on the MLS, there is 1 business day until it is required to be entered into the MLS. So we have got all our ducks in a row. The state has mandated that this go into effect no later than May 1st, 2020. I think it'll be a good thing to dovetail into our MLS system. We've had a committee meeting last week discussing how we're going to have a coming soon status within the MLS, which we're all excited about, because I think this coming soon status and having that NMLS is going to provide our community of agents and realtors unbelievable levels of opportunity and value for the consumer. And what else we got? We have right now we're not looking into any new data or any new application for our members, just with everything associated with the COVID-19. As soon as we resume operations as normal, we're going to be looking at stuff within showing time and a few other tax data products, and how we can pull more tax data easily into the new platform. Otherwise, Forewarn, which is the application to kind of vet telephone numbers, has been a big success, probably our biggest success of any product that we've offered to the membership. It is free. There were 165 people that signed up for it, which is 23.4% of the membership, which in our past, if you compare those to Domus, it's really, really good. Just in the past 30 days of March, we've had 707 searches, and that is about 4.25 searches per user. So that being said, are there any questions? Go ahead and type it into the chat and I will help answer. Julie had a question about the doghouse builders being compensated, or is it considered donated labor and supplies?
So Julie, they will be compensated. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. They will be compensated. I think it's a $500 stipend for anyone that decides to want to be a builder. And then you're also entered into a contest. There's 3 different levels of where you can win money for being like the best builder during that time.
Cool. Debbie knows that there's a class May 11th. Is there anywhere online that we can do some training while hanging at home? Absolutely. If you go to the VBR.net tab and you click, you go down to members home, flex conversion, like that was in the slide. There's all sorts of quick tips, flex help. There's an overview, information about the IDX transfers. But yeah, the official in-person training, or excuse me, getting started with Flex webinar is May 11th, as soon as it's available. It is just, we've gone through this. It's a lot easier to do and kind of get to know the platform as soon as it's available and you can play around with it. So we didn't want to schedule too many webinars or too many trainings without the ability for the members to have it in front of them. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to pass it on to Cynthia with the Vail Board of Realtors Foundation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Erica, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We want to start out by just thanking all the offices that helped have such a successful silent auction with the gift baskets. It was really exciting and it was fun to see everything. We've kind of outgrown that room at Vista, so we're going to have to reconfigure things if we stay at Vista. But out of 120 offices, I think we had a little under 35, maybe around 32 offices that participated. So this year we're going to even try to get more, maybe 50 offices or more. So I will be reaching out to each office to get a contact name of who I should work with to help through the process of just participating in this function. So that was very exciting. And I know when Eric and I delivered the gift card to the winning office for the best gift basket, it was Slifer on Bridge Street, they were excited and they were like already coming up with ideas for this next silent auction. So that was fun. And it was just something we all worked together on. It was just a really good event. And the best thing was that we actually raised $15,000 towards the scholarships. And so this year, we're going to actually be able to award $35,000 worth of scholarships for Eagle County residents that want to either go to college or any kind of higher education that they're pursuing. So in 2018, we started with $10,000 in scholarships, $2,000 each. 2019, we awarded $24,000, and this year it's going to be $35,000. So that is awesome, and I hope that we can keep growing with the donations so that we can keep awarding even more college scholarships. We also had a new process this year for the not-for-profit community organization funding, and instead of them coming in all year long, it was great that we had all the applications in at one time. So for the whole year, we could evaluate all the applications and then decide which organizations were going to get them and the dollar amount. So it worked very, very smoothly this year, and I'm sure we're going to continue to do the same process. Okay, and then lastly, well, not lastly, sorry. The golf tournament is not going to be in June. It is hopefully going to be in September, and that's, you know, just due to all the issues we're having right now. So we are looking for a new site or just any other options, just in case it doesn't work out with Cordilleras Valley Club. But I know Kevin is working on that, so hopefully we'll have more information to give everyone on that shortly. And then just a note, and this is something that kind of surprises us on the committee, that a lot of our Vail Board of Realtor members aren't aware that we're there for not only Eagle County residents, but for all the Vail Board of Realtor members. So if there is any financial assistance that is needed for illnesses and accidents, you know, several different things that could come up in your life that, you know, you just really need some financial support, we do have the application on the Vail Board of Realtors website. And I would just, you know, if you could tell all your brokers in your offices, let them know that this is available too. And I think this year, you know, we might be seeing more than even last year. So just know that we're there for you, and we'll do, you know, anything we can to help out, you know, our team, our Vail Board of Realtors members. So that is all I have, if anybody has any questions.
All right. Alex, I still can't see for some reason. Would you mind seeing if there's any other questions?
Yeah, you got it. I don't see anyone coming in now, but let us know, and we can come back to Cynthia if we see one in the chat box. So let's just keep rolling.
Okay. Well, I guess that's all we have, or just any other. This is kind of the wrap up. We've kind of given you guys quite a bit of information, so yeah, feel free to let us know the questions you have about anything that we're doing right now, and how we can help support you during this time.
Man, I thought I was going to get grilled with flex questions. Are you sure? I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah. Right. It looks like it's pretty quiet.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. Did you see that, Erica? She said,
Nope.
Thanks, Erica. You and your staff have been spectacular through all of this. Gil, yes, why the change to flex? What it eventually came down to was that our agreement with Rapatoni was up, and we did our due diligence as a board for all of the membership to see if it's the right system, if there are better systems out there. It was about a 1.5 year process just to vet and check and see if there was a better platform, and there were multiple, and Flex was by far the best. We weighed all of the pros and cons of the transition and shift, and we feel that even though it's not going to be an easy transition, it is in the best interest of the membership. So yeah, as mentioned before, Gil, if you go to the VBR.net and you log into your member account, aside from MLS, there is a members home icon. The second one down is Flex MLS conversion. Tons of information there. And of course, if you have questions outside of that, you can always call Mike Fox, the MLS director. I'm happy to talk about it as well and help you with any questions.
And just a side note, you do have to be logged into the website for you to be able to see the Flex conversion page. So just be logged in so you can see that.
Erica?
Yep.
Erica, can you hear me?
You, Cynthia? Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to mention one thing too that I forgot to mention. That May 1st, our annual academic scholarship program will be available for students to apply online until June 19th. So I hadn't mentioned those dates, and I know we'll have it listed on the Vail Board of Realtors website, but I just want to mention that to everybody too.
Yeah, it's a really great opportunity, and we'll have that available officially May 1st. All right. Well, I guess if anyone has any further questions, feel free to email me, and we can get you the answers in the meantime. And my email, if you don't have it, is ekirk@vbr.net. And yeah, thank you so much for attending today, and hopefully you guys learned a lot and have picked up some tidbits of information. So.
Agreed. Thanks, Erica. Thanks, everyone. See you out there.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye.